Emmerdale teases that chaos and consequence are never far behind when the past collides with the present. Dylan's return to the village was meant to be quiet, a personal step toward rebuilding the life he had broken. But fate had other plans. Hidden among the hay bales and weather-worn tools in the barn on Moira's farm, Dylan was trying to stay out of sight. He was cautious, tired, and limping from an injury sustained in the city, but he hadn't anticipated being hunted. It was late evening when the stillness of the countryside shattered. A group of masked men stormed Moira's property, their boots thundering over the gravel as Kyle, unaware of Dylan's presence, played nearby. The intruders shouted commands, smashing through gates and barns, demanding to know the whereabouts of someone or something. Kyle screamed. The sound pierced the wind. Moira, alert from the noise, rushed outside. Her eyes widened at the sight of Kyle cornered, and without hesitation, she retrieved the rifle kept locked in the feed shed. Adrenaline surged. She fired once into the air, and the masked group scattered like frightened crows. But not before Dylan, caught trying to escape the barn, was stabbed in the thigh by one of the retreating figures. Blooded and gasping, Dylan dragged himself to the edge of the field, hiding under a low-hanging tree. It was April who found him. She had been visiting her mother's grave when she spotted movement in the grass. The shock was immediate, but so was the instinct to help. She ran to him, eyes wide, trying to process what he was doing there. They talked for hours. Dylan, pale and breathless, admitted he had been clean for months. That he had fled something worse than addiction, something tied to the people who came after him at Moira's. April listened, hanging on his every word. There was a gentleness in her, a hopefulness, that Dylan hadn't seen in years. For a moment, there was peace. That peace shattered when Marlon found out. Furious, he confronted Dylan first, dragging him by the collar, ignoring his wound, and hurling threats. He told Dylan to stay away from April, to get out of the village before he brought more trouble. And then came the prohibition. April was forbidden from seeing Dylan again. April cried that night. She didn't eat dinner, didn't speak to her father. But the next morning, she found Dylan again. This time, she brought him bandages and food. They sat together beneath the same tree. Dylan confessed that he had seen Ray in the village, an old enemy from his life before recovery. That was why he'd hidden in the barn, why he couldn't go to the police. April believed him. She believed in him. And she insisted they tell Marlon everything. That if her dad really loved her, he would listen. Protect them. Dylan hesitated. But when he saw the conviction in her eyes, he nodded. It wasn't easy. Marlon listened with crossed arms and a cold stare. But as April spoke, her voice shaking, her face streaked with frustration, Marlon began to soften. Then Dylan spoke, offering no excuses, only truth. He admitted his fears, his failures, and how he didn't want to drag April into anything. Marlon was silent for a long time, before he finally exhaled and said, "You stay clean. You stay honest. You hurt her, and I'll finish what those blokes at the farm started." Got it? It was, oddly, a beginning. Meanwhile, another story unfolded across the village. Mackenzie stood alone in the middle of a party he wasn't part of. Sarah, Charity, Jacob and others were laughing, dancing, living. Mac stood at the edge of it all, a smile painted on his face, but sorrow beneath it. Aaron noticed. Later that night, Aaron found him sitting alone by the stream. He didn't say much at first, just offered a beer and silence. Then, softly, he said, "You should talk to her. You'll regret it if you don't." Mac nodded, but when he tried, when he finally mustered the courage to walk across the village and approach Charity, he saw her turn away, laughing with someone else, unaware or unwilling to acknowledge him. It stung. So he walked away. The next day, it was Charity who came to him. She found him fixing the fencing outside the pub and asked if they could talk. He hesitated but nodded. "I know I've been distant," she began, "but I've been trying to figure things out." He asked about the surrogacy. She nodded. I said yes. Mac looked down. "Why?" "Because someone needed me to, and I thought, maybe if I did something good, it'd fix what's broken inside me." He looked at her, eyes wet. "But what if it breaks us more?" Charity stepped closer. "Then we fix it together. Unless you can't." Mac didn't answer right away. The wind moved between them. Then finally, he whispered, "I'm scared." "So am I," she said. "But I'm not walking away unless you tell me to." And for the first time in days, Mackenzie didn't feel alone. In the following days, tension remained like a quiet echo across the village. Moira, back on her feet and trying to regain some sense of normality, refused to let her guard down. Kyle clung to her more than ever, sensing the turbulence that still lingered beneath her surface. Moira kept glancing out the windows, the trauma of the masked men breaking into the farm replaying in her head like a cruel film loop. The bail conditions were strict, and any slip-up could land her back inside. Kane was determined to keep things under control, but even he felt the pressure. He had a quiet word with Mackenzie, instructing him to keep an eye on the farm while he chased new leads about Ray. Kane didn't trust the sudden disappearance, it felt too clean, too planned. He suspected Ray had gone underground, but not for long. Kane began making calls, calling in favors, checking old connections who owed him. He needed to finish this. April, now emboldened by her stand against Ray, started to show a maturity beyond her years. She stood by Dylan's side openly, despite sideways glances from her classmates, and the disapproval still simmering in Marlon's eyes. Marlon had softened, yes, but his instincts as a father remained. He watched Dylan constantly, not out of spite, but from a protective fear. He couldn't afford to be wrong. Dylan, on the other hand, transformed under Kane's brutal regimen. He was sharper, more aware, and, most importantly, he stood taller. For the first time, he wasn't running from his past. And it showed. He applied for a part-time job at the garage, surprising even Kane with his determination. "I need to be more than a survivor," Dylan said. "I want to be useful." Mackenzie, despite his personal turmoil, vouched for him. Aaron too. Slowly, the community started to notice the change. Not just in Dylan, but in the way April lit up around him. There was hope again. Meanwhile, Charity's surrogacy journey took an unexpected turn. The clinic called with news, preliminary tests showed complications with the implantation process. Charity was shaken. It wasn't just physical, it was emotional. She'd made peace with the decision to carry someone else's child, but facing the reality of medical risks brought it all crashing down. She sat in silence at the kitchen table, staring at the letter. Mackenzie joined her, reading it over her shoulder. "You don't have to do this," he said quietly. Charity looked at him, pain behind her eyes. "But I want to." This was supposed to mean something. He took her hand. "Then we face it together. Whatever comes." Elsewhere, Aaron began noticing something odd. Kane was too secretive, too restless. Aaron followed him one evening, trailing him to a meeting with a stranger in a lay-by. He didn't confront Kane, not yet. But the look in Kane's eyes during that exchange troubled him. Kane wasn't just gathering information. He was planning something. Aaron voiced his concerns to Moira, who was already suspicious. Kane had been disappearing more often. Moira confronted him that night. "If you're going after Ray, I need to know. We can't afford more damage." Not now. Kane didn't lie. I'm making sure he doesn't hurt us again. You want to stop me? Then look me in the eye and tell me you're not still afraid. Moira said nothing. The next morning, word reached the village. Ray had been spotted in Manchester, attempting to use a fake ID. Police were on alert. But Kane already knew. He'd been tracking Ray's contacts. He made a choice, one he didn't tell anyone. He left a note for Moira, "This ends now." Back in the village, April and Dylan were preparing for a local fundraiser at the cafe. They'd offered to help Brenda with decorations, and April was beaming as they hung fairy lights and sorted raffle tickets. For a moment, they were just teenagers, laughing, teasing, light-hearted. Then the call came. Charity, pale and shaking, stood in the doorway. "It's Kane. He's gone after Ray. Alone." Panic set in. Moira, eyes wide with fear, turned to Mackenzie and Aaron. "We have to stop him." Dylan looked up, fists clenched. "I'm coming too." The race to find Kane had begun, and with it, a reckoning no one in Emmerdale could have foreseen.